First play we're going to look at, 2nd and 2, one of the Patriots' first offensive plays.
And there are still wide receiver options, right? Whether it's via trade, whether it's in the draft. McMillian ran a 4.48. People talking he was going to run a 4.7. No. Sub 4.5. Maybe runs more of a mid 4.5 in my opinion, but that is what it is.
I just read on another report from Ted's Pro Day. Got 40 guys clocked him in the range from 4.46 to 4.52. So it's somewhere in between there. So
so not bad. Okay, so with that knowledge now in your back pocket, who are the wide receiver options that are available that you think the Patriots could pursue to at least be, maybe not that bona fide ex-AJ Brown type, but at least a respectable presence that could maybe affect where defenses are trying to play you?
Are we talking Ted McMillan at 4 now? Is he in the discussion?
I've been saying we should at least consider it. I think not even giving it 2 thoughts is kind of nuts when the Patriots have such a glaring need.
I like him. I like him a lot. I mean, my only note on McMillan was the speed. When I'm watching him, I'm like, big guy, still sinks his hips, in and out of routes, unbelievable hands. I think he's man coverage. He could be your back shoulder guy, win contested catches, good feel for the game overall. My question was dynamism, right? But you had the same question about a Drake London a couple of years ago, who I think ends up being a pretty good comp. He actually didn't run and was still the first wide receiver off the board in a loaded wide receiver class with Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave and Jamison Williams coming after him. So I still think McMillan is probably worth the top 10 pick. The only issue with New England, I'm usually a draft the best player type of person. The left tackle need is so glaring. And I think the decision, I know the question was about receivers. The decision for them, though, is going to come down to the scarcity aspect of it. You don't find left tackles in round 2 all that often. You don't find late developmental tackles, and you can't afford to do that. So that's going to be the challenge for the Patriots. So I really think it's going to be that second wave of receivers, and it's probably not as strong as last year's with, say, like Ladd McConkey was on the board and a few others. I know what happened there. But I like Jaden Higgins quite a bit for Iowa State. I think he's starting to get a little bit more of that late first round type of buzz. Big body that he also ran high 4.4s. Didn't feel like a high 4.4 guy, felt like more of a 4.5 guy, but that was a big box that he ticked because he wins in a similar way to McMillan. I think he could be a really good player. I got a little more work to do on a guy like Trey Harris from Ole Miss, but that offense is just obnoxious because he's running just a couple routes, one of those deals. But he's got some vertical speed that showed up in that offense quite a bit. I think Jack Besh from TCU was one of those guys that was originally going to be going, maybe as late as day 3, that sneaks into day 2 now, maybe in the second round. Had that great Senior Bowl, of course, was an awesome story with him winning MVP. I love his ball skills, and he just does a lot of things extremely well. But we're playing, I'll throw Jalen Royals in there too from Utah State, who I think really good route runner, as it reminds me of an Amari Cooper type. So we're playing the same game as last year, right? Which is get the highest value position in the first, second, and third round. Do you double up at the same position? Don't have PTSD just because of what happened with Jalen Polk and Javon Baker. I hear Patriots fans right now.
And N'Keal Harry and Tyquan Thornton.
Well, you can't do that. That's one of the worst things fan bases do. Well, Belichick never drafted a receiver. Well, this organization can't draft a receiver. Right. All right, so just quit, right? Just all you should ever do is find a 7th round quarterback conversion from Kent State. That's the only way you could find a receiver, right? Just find that next guy. So the past doesn't dictate the future. But even from last year with the same front office, don't have PTSD just because Javon Baker and Jalen Polk weren't good. You have to double up at this position again until you find somebody, because you're not just finding one, you really need 4. You need 4 pass catchers in today's NFL to keep defenses off balance. So you have to double up once again, and it's probably going to be in that 2nd to 4th round range where you have to take a couple shots there.
Any interest in a stopgap guy there, like a Brandon Cooks, Amari Cooper, Eli Moore's out there? You think there's any chance they go for a wave 2 wide receiver, or just kind of wait for late April at this point?
I have no problem with volume. I mean, the problem with a guy like Amari Cooper is I'm generally during this time of year, I get the big starry eyes on like the names, right? Amari Cooper, DeAndre Hopkins, and Stephon Diggs.
Yeah.
Right. And so in a year ago, I thought all those guys were good. I thought Stephon Diggs was a great move by the Texans. I thought DeAndre Hopkins was a great move by the Chiefs mid-season, picking him up. And I thought Amari Cooper was a great job by the Bills, picking him up mid-season. And the fact that Cooper went and had like 2 good games for Buffalo, Hopkins had 1 or 2 good games for the Chiefs when they needed him. And, Stephon Diggs got hurt, and, who knows what, you talk about the leadership and don't know if he's going to fit the bill there. So that's the challenge with the older receivers. We saw Randy Moss, go from great Randy Moss in 2009 and early 2010 to all of a sudden he just can't get open and he's bouncing around the Niners and the Titans. It hits quickly for receivers, and some of those guys that you're mentioning, it seems like it's hitting pretty quickly for them. So they would be just a stopgap, and I would have lower expectations for an older veteran like that.
And there are none of those kinds of options at offensive tackle. Like Cam Robinson, maybe, but it also sounds like the Patriots are not in on him for whatever reason. So kind of going back to the draft, I don't disagree that a left tackle should probably be where the Patriots go. But like other positions, there's no one where you're like, yes, like this is the definitive pick. You get this guy, you're good. Because Will Campbell, as talented as he is and as successful as he was at the SEC level, you're also talking about a guy who has wingspan and arm length. That would be a massive, massive outlier at the position. So then you think, all right, Armand Membu, yes, he was a right tackle. He played in the SEC. He had success. Doesn't give you the same question marks and might have more upside at the tackle position. So how do you feel at number 4? If the Patriots are going tackle, is there any chance that Armand Membu should be in that conversation? And also, if for some reason they do go Ted, is there anybody you think who might be available in the second round? I'm like crossing my fingers for Ariante Ursary, but anybody who might be able to give them some quality left tackle play past the top 5 picks.
I mean, just to answer that question, Ursary is showing up in a lot of the mock draft simulators. Those aren't always the best gauge of the market or where a guy's going, but I thought Ursary would get a little bit more late first round type of hype, and I think it sounds like he might end up more as a second round pick. So yes, that could work. These are the same discussions. Again, in Cincinnati a couple years ago, we were debating Jamar Chase or Penei Sewell.
Yep.
And it was Jamar Chase. And then I was like, all right, we'll fill the tackle spot on the turn in the second round. And they didn't. They didn't do it well. I think it was Cordell Volson. Was it Volson on that pick? It did not go well.
Yeah.
Whereas the Chargers did it great last year, but they had a blue chip tackle option in Joe Alt. And then they came back with Ladd McConkey, tackle, then receiver. That's a great way to go. I'm still of the mind that Will Campbell deserves a shot to play left tackle. I still think so. He's got it's a weird body type. It's beyond just the arm length. It is just general wingspan length. It's just a slender left tackle body, but he's an extremely good athlete and he's good at blocking overall. He's not great. He's good at blocking, which is important as a left tackle. But he's not great, right? There's some pretty good SEC rushers that gave him some issues, but I think overall he's fine. The other thing that and Membu, I think, would be fine in that conversation as well. It doesn't matter that he played right tackle. We see right tackle and left tackle switch all the time. The one issue there is it's not that a guy can't play on the other side. There's more risk incurred, though, if you are moving a player, right? We saw this last year. Talise Fuanga and J.C. Latham, both college right tackles, go to left tackle in the NFL. I think they got off to a slow start because of the transition. So that is just something to keep an eye on. Nothing long-term there, though. The other thing to think about, my general strategy is you're not drafting for 1 year, right? You can't just sit here and say, how do we make this team better this year? If they can pick up second wave free agency guard, figure out the interior. Like if they could go into the draft and only left tackle is the need, you may be able to stomach not even getting the left tackle, hoping an Ursary falls, hoping a Josh Conerly falls into the second round, and you just take the blue chip player. And that's still better for the organization. And a lot of the conversation is, well, you got to do well by Drake May. You got to do this. You got to do that. And I get it. But the best thing for the organization is Abdul Carter falls. I still think Mason Graham's in the blue chip conversation. Tet McMillan might be in that blue chip conversation. The picking the best player is still best for the organization. And you don't want to just say, Will Campbell, even though he doesn't fit all of the prototypes, we're going to take him anyway. So I would lean toward take the best players if you can. But you have to do a little bit more in free agency to get to the draft without those glaring needs. So you don't feel forced to take the left tackle, whether it's Membu or Campbell, because I think both are the quote reach at 4 there, because there's probably a better option on the board at that point.
Travis Hunter Ursary, baby. That's the 1-2 punch right there.
Over more than 2 decades and 2 separate dynasties, the Patriots defense has become synonymous with great linebacker play. Unfortunately, last season, key losses to both the coaching staff and roster left the unit vulnerable against both run and pass. Unfortunately, new head coach Mike Vrabel and his staff have made one key move to the roster in one of their first moves of free agency that could be the difference maker and allow New England to get back to its winning ways at the second level. Christian Ellis was retained and could carve out a role on passing downs, but the Patriots first hinted at a stylistic change when they signed former Raider Robert Spillane. Now, Spillane mugging the line of scrimmage usually meant that he was going to drop into coverage, but as he showed against the Saints, he's also a pretty opportunistic pass rusher. The Saints match 6 potential rushers with 6 blockers, but the Raiders only send 4 players on a simulated or sim pressure. Despite having more blockers than Vegas has rushers, a twist from the linebackers in the middle makes Shane Lameau late to his block. This allows Spillane to catch Lameau off guard on a pick and get in Spencer Rattler's face on a high incompletion. Spillane would reach the quarterback one drive later, capitalizing on another missed assignment for an unblocked sack. Even when Spillane doesn't get to the quarterback, like any seasoned rusher, he knows he has to get his hands up. That instinct led to a game-changing drive stop during Week 2's upset in Baltimore. Facing 3rd and 5 down 7 points, Spillane rushes the left guard on an all-out blitz. He maintains vision on the quarterback after getting solid knockback, then sees Lamar Jackson wind up to throw and bats the pass. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure to become a member of Patriots Press Pass on YouTube to get full access to videos like this and much more really fun content. I cannot wait for you to see it.
Just wanted to give a quick shout out to our friends over at Prize Picks. If you want to get in on the action with us, head over there, use code CLNS. You get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game.